early 2023, Bell with Keeler Decor Solutions, which includes the Hickory Hardware, Bell with Keeler, and First Watch brands, announced the relaunch of the Keeler Brass Company, a brand with more than 100 years of history. To herald the brand's relaunch under the Bell with Keeler Decor Solutions umbrella, the company announced a unique partnership with manufacturer Monogram, known for its high-end luxury appliances. Together, the Keeler Brass Company and Monogram designed and created a customizable line of hardware rendered in American-made solid brass and wrapped in sustainably sourced Green Guard Gold certified durable Edelman Leather. We were able to catch up with the minds and personalities at the root of this partnership, Knikki Grantham, creative director for Keeler Brass Company, and Richard Anuszkiewicz, Monogram's creative director, to dig a little deeper into the how and why of the collaboration, as well as to see what the future may hold for these two storied brands. First and foremost, I know you guys started as sort of friends. You met each other, you clicked right away. Tell me a little bit about that first interaction.
So I'll go first. I think that you get put in places in life and in front of people and around people, it's kind of kismet or fate. Richard and I are just like, I think, kindred souls, period. We kind of come from the same background. We have the same kind of chip on our shoulder. We kind of bonded in that same way of like, we wanted to take on the world we just clicked, right away. So we were doing Design Chicago, and then we had an event where we brought people into our facility and kind of opened up our archives and our library. And I think he could see like what I fell in love with about the company that I work with is that legacy and that history and how we've been, vital throughout the history of furniture design and hardware design. And it was really something we hadn't unearthed a lot of or capitalized on kind of what that story was. So I think we kind of bonded over that. We had a fun event. We're just, I don't know, we're similar souls, I guess you could say, and just have always kept in contact, whether we had projects or not. I'm a fan of his, period. I think he sees things from a lens that a lot of people are afraid to go to. And I appreciate that as an artist. So I fangirled immediately.
Yeah, I think that, to further expand on Nikki's points, it's like, it was an immediate synergy that was, there was a lot of natural interest, and I think, again, appreciation for art ultimately when you kind of boil it down to the simplicity of it. And I think one thing that we can all appreciate is the reality of life is, you meet people along the way. And I, as soon as we met, again, there was a general connection there, but specifically, when you think of brands and things, you don't really think that there's people behind it. And I think one of the things that is most special to me in one of our first kind of bonding meetings is, as Knikki mentioned, we did a wonderful showroom tour and kind of deep dive into the brand, but then we had to road trip to Chicago together. And, that really just solidified a sincere friendship. And that's when you really get to, connect with people. And I think those are special moments that I have a lot of those throughout time and with different people in my career. And I'm really grateful for that.
So Knikki, you mentioned opening up the archives of Bell with Keeler to Monogram. So obviously you two are two individuals. You have somewhat control. I don't know what the actual politics there are over the designs of your particular products. Is it tough getting the rest of a company on board to say like, okay, we're going to open up our design book to a different company to see if there's any synergies? Is that a difficult roadblock, or is everyone on top basically like, oh yeah, go and work with whoever if you guys think it's good for us?
From our perspective, the history of Bell with Keeler or Keeler, it's actually, Keeler was our parent company in the beginning. It was Keeler Brass Company by the Keeler family. And historically, what they did was OEM hardware for the furniture industry, the automotive industry, the gun industry, locks. So it was, if there was a metal component to be done over this course of 130 years, we were doing it, but we were doing it as an OEM manufacturer. So having those relationships have always been part of our core values. So for me, it wasn't tough from that aspect. Where it became a new adventure, I think, for our part, was that it was a co-branded experience. So versus us, creating a part for someone, we were creating a part with someone. And it was definitely a learning curve with, packaging and marketing and lockups and the engineering aspect of it. We don't make hardware for post-market. So there was a lot of testing that we're had to be new to. So that was a huge learning curve for us. But it was, I think, as far as our core values, we've always partnered with people throughout history. We were with, Ford. We've done automotive and machine gun parts during the war efforts. It was something we just always did, just not, we didn't tell people a lot about it, which was to me kind of crazy. I'm like, hey, if we do all these things, like, why are we not screaming it from the rooftop? So,
and I think to that point, there's a relevancy of collaboration in the era of, the last probably 5 years or so and beyond. I mean, in the sense of, I think, again, in a natural synergy, Knikki and I have always looked at fashion houses and different things. And, over the last so many years, you can see these really crazy mashups and collaborations where people are, it's kind of a new celebrated confidence of you're really good at what you do. I'm really good at what I do. Let's, be stronger and greater together. I work in my day-to-day at Design Galleria Kitchen Bath Studio in Nashville, and we have a lot of great designers. And I always call us the Avengers, because in my mind, it's we each have a superpower and together we're greater as a whole. And so, it's that same logic, right? Where we can take to, the running kind of title of our collaboration is the Titans, in collaboration. And I think that's really true, just because we have two powerhouses that are able to do something greater together.
And during the collaboration period, so obviously you guys pitch it to whoever you need to. They agree to allow this to go forward. They agree with the co-branding. When you guys are sort of working on the designs, what's that design process like?
In a lot of situations, that's kind of how it goes, is we offer suggestions. In this particular situation, this is all from the brainchild of that man. His concept, his drawing, his artistry, everything that he put together, it was our job as hardware manufacturers to figure out, how do you make this manufacturable? I mean, that's what industrial engineers do, is we take someone's idea. So for my company, a lot of the things are things that are plucked out of my brain that are crazy. And I have a design team that has to figure out, how do we make that manufacturable? So this was Richard's brainchild. I wouldn't touch any aesthetic aspect whatsoever from what he did with this particular hardware. And if the success of it shows, that's he knows what he's doing in that aspect. What we had to figure out was engineering capabilities, manufacturing, new tools had to be made for a certain pitch that he wanted on that radial. So there were things that's where he talks about our strength and his strength. We met in the middle, and we didn't change the aesthetic that he's going for. We made it manufacturable and cost effective and things like that. So that's our job. His job is just dream big, baby, dream big.
Yeah, and I think to in that vein of, I had a really very strong idea and kind of visual in my mind of what I was wanting to accomplish and execute. And, I really give, credit, of course, across the board to the collective team, but I have to also recognize who is not on the call at the moment is the industrial design team within Monogram themselves, because, I had really strong sketches and ideas, but there was, definitely some engineering on our end to ultimately be able to kind of do things internally and then pass that along to Keeler to really make it happen. So there were a lot of hands on this, and people that I always say I could have the best idea, but ultimately it doesn't happen without amazing people around me who bring it to fruition. So I want to recognize everyone who was a part of it, because it really was a group and collective effort.
And so when you, Knikki, first got those plans, I mean, was it really like there's been relatively no change from the original inception to what it turned out to be, which was, a hard brass leather wrap kind of look?
What I would say probably the key change that had to be made was in the stitching. Screw hole, or the sizing of this, that, and the other, the plate, how this adapted, the size, the radial. There were little, very subtle changes that had to be made per the particular machine that had to be used. But probably the biggest is that the metal slot in bar that goes across his hardware, that was a first in the industry, and no one had ever done it. And it came about, trying to figure out how to stitch something this size correctly, with the right threading, and what does that mean around a stove or things that your hand is on all the time. I mean, it was just, there were so many variables that coming up with a new way to do it was, it's kind of, that's the mother of invention, right? You meet a roadblock and you have to come up with a different way to get that look.
To that point, it's always reality and design, where once we really scale things and get some samples made, you make minor tweaks, and that's kind of the beauty of the creative process, is you always want to keep refining, make sure proportions are right, things of that nature. So to me, that's all kind of par for the course. But as Knikki mentioned, I mean, the metal inlay down the front was really a result of a hurdle that we faced, because we were having some real issues of getting the detail that we wanted correct. And those are those moments that are like the aha moments, because you're like, oh my God, like this is a phenomenal. And now it's like I can't imagine the piece without it, because it's such a beautiful detail. And that's the power of design, right? It's like when you hit those walls, there's always a solution. And I'm really big on that. So I had an art teacher back in third grade, and I'll forever remember this, of like, whenever I was drawing something and I thought I made a mistake, and she said, it's not a mistake, it's an opportunity, because now I can create something different. And so that's something that's always stuck with me, truly. And, it's moments like that metal inlay that was the opportunity.
Excellent. That's a really good point. In terms of how long that sort of, I mean, because you said it was a roadblock, so I imagine you kind of had that thought in your mind, like, okay, this is something we need to get over. How do we do it? How long did you guys have it, Knikki, before you were able to come up with this solution? And Richard, when you first saw the product, so I guess this is like a two-part question. When you saw the product for the first time, was it very much like, okay, this is what I envisioned? Or was it like, hey, this is great, let's change a little bit of this? Was there a lot of back and forth, or was it like, boom, home run right out the park?
I would say there's a lot of back and forth. I mean, there was probably 4 or 5 ideas that came around that we were some Zoom in people all the time. Hop on the Zoom, let's talk about it. PowerPoints and Zooms, I would say, like, led us to the greater land here, but it went back and forth. And I think there's subtle things that will always change. I don't think that, say for instance, on the end, the radial brush stroke, that probably went back 2 or 3 times. Does it need to have this finer stroke to it? Does it need to have the little point at the end? Do we indent the pipe, the the sawtooth edging, did it look too pie pan? Let's change this. And it could be something as so minor as 0.15, percent tilt, but those things make a difference to, the artist. So it was our job to facilitate his vision, and do it manufacturable. So it went back and forth a while. I don't regret like any part of that, because again, I think, like you said, it wasn't that we hit a roadblock. We had an opportunity to perfect something that we knew was going to be industry changing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's like, again, that's the beauty of the creative process. You just keep peeling the layers, and kind of deeper dive. And that's something that I'm really passionate about and pretty relentless on, of like, until it's perfect, like we got to keep going. And I appreciate people around me that celebrate that and respect it and want to make that happen.
I think one of the biggest, things I was quoted in our lookbook and on our social, because basically when I have a partnership with someone, I'm a bulldog. So if this was his vision, it was my job on the interior for Keeler to get his vision to light, where other people may have been like, oh, well, I think it's okay. It's only 0.15% that we're changing. And I'm like, that's the difference between good and great. And that's what I do for the products that we bring out, whether it's a collab or whether it's the Keeler anthology. This needs to be tweaked. It's not quite right. And fight for, like you said, Richard, your vision. It's your vision to fight for. And if you don't, and I'm the little bulldog, so I get a hold of it. I don't quite let go.
Well, seeing you two and meeting you and talking to you, it's pretty obvious like why it would be easy for you to work together. You have a good little dynamic. But obviously there are a lot of moving parts in a partnership like this. There are a lot of, not cooks in the kitchen necessarily, but there's a lot of people in the restaurant. So in terms of handling the responsibilities, it sounds like, Monogram had the vision, Bell with Keeler kind of had, at least for the hardware side of it, had the follow through. In terms of like the financials moving forward, what are the responsibilities? Who benefits where, and how does that actually work?
It is a product that will be sold by Monogram, serviced by Bell with Keeler or Keeler Brass Company. So basically we will ship, service, everything. We package. It's a white glove concierge service that we're offering. And it's something back in the day Keeler used to do. We actually, part of the packaging, there's white gloves, and they were found actually in our facility. Someone unearthed a box of old Keeler white gloves. And I was like, 100% absolutely, we have to have it. The partnership beneficial for us, as Keeler Brass Company was dormant for so long, it was the opportunity for us to piggyback on a titan in the industry. We could relaunch our brand in conjunction with them, and no other point in time were we going to have the vehicle like a Monogram to do so. So it was, for us, it was a question of timing. We're not selling the product. Monogram sells the product. We will manufacture, service, ship, take care of the whole white glove concierge part of it. That's how I think the split worked for us. Was we get the benefit of this machine called Monogram to help launch our brand again in the industry and show its relevance. It's, like I said, an opportunity like that would never have come about. The stars literally had to align for that one.
And I think that it's just really, when you simplify it, it's the power of communication. Like, hey, here's what, I ideally want. Here's what you ideally want. Can we, work together to make this happen? And that's the power of, good relationships, good communication, like in the most simplest form.
And if I can ask about financial specifics, I don't know if you guys will have this number. Is it a matter of Monogram buys basically the product from Bell with Keeler, and then Monogram obviously will sell it and then get the profit from that? Or is it a continual financial arrangement between the two companies?
it's a purchased product. I mean, they own their inventory, and all of the profit goes to them. There's of course, in any situation we get, they're given a price based on our cost plus, and it's their product. We will inventory it and ship it and sell it, package it, and all that. So, are there plans to go forward? Yeah, I hope so. I would love to keep continuing as new and great as this whole project has been. It's long, it's arduous. It's like it's been this great road, and then once you get to the end of it, you're kind of like, all right, man, let's do it again. Like I'm ready to go at it again. So,
Well, in that vein, I mean, this is a good question to end it on. Are there any concrete plans for, future collaborations, or is it just, right now, like talks and hopes kind of thing?
I would say, as like from my perspective, it's more concrete, as I'm not going to let this man get away. So I from that perspective, I definitely think so. Again, this is such a new product from the Monogram. That perspective, we haven't even gotten into the marketplace. This was the launch, so getting into the marketplace, it's going to be a gradual thing for the year 2023 and 24. But from a product development, we also know how long this took and what we need to do moving forward. So Richard and I, we do our little chitty chats where we're ready to start working on some new stuff. So like I said, from my perspective, I'm not letting him get away. So
I think again that it goes back to the point of like good synergy, good partnerships, good relationships, that you want to work with like-minded people who you can celebrate one another and achieve something greater together.